Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'm really excited to show you some tools in 365 that have been introduced in 365 over the last few years. Um, but one of my questions is, how many of you guys, oh, my chat disappeared here. Oh, well, how many of you guys, just give me a show of hands, have loaded your 365 software, whether it's Word, Excel, whatever, and all of a sudden there's a new button or a new feature or some feature that you were used to using suddenly looks different. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah. Oh, I'm getting the dancing queen. I just got my chat up. Or maybe you haven't even noticed that there are new features. That would be even more exciting. Because I'm going to show you some of the new features. Uh, Let me just get sorry guys, my screen disappeared. I'm going to show you some of the new features that I think are kind of neat. Plus, a couple of these features, especially Excel and PowerPoint, the features that I'm going to show you, you guys don't have to be Excel experts or PowerPoint experts. That's the idea behind the couple of features that I chose. So I'll start with something called the Immersive Reader in Word. And then I'll move on to a feature called Analyze Data in Excel. Then in PowerPoint, I'm going to show you a feature called PowerPoint Designer. And then in Outlook, I will show you the polls feature. So four really cool features. Now I'm going to have to go back to, sorry, I have to go back and forth between screens here. Can you just confirm with me, Joy? You can see my Word screen, right? My Word document.
I can see it.
And
You're good,
Everything's good.
Kristen.
Okay, perfect.
everything's good.
Okay, so guys, I'm going to start with the immersive reader in Word. The immersive reader in Word is like a personal reading assistant. Like if you have problems focusing, or you could have maybe you don't see with 20/20 vision, that kind of thing. It's a personal assistant, and you'll find the immersive reader up on your view tab at the top, view, and it's, I don't know, six or so buttons down the view ribbon here, immersive reader. I'm going to click it to turn it on. And what it's going to do is it's going to get rid of a lot of the overhead on the Word screen. So you see just a nice big white document here, and you have a little toolbar up at the top with some buttons to make it easier to focus on things. For example, the first button is column width. So right now they're set to narrow columns. I'll show you what it looks like with very narrow columns. Or you could make it moderate columns and widen it out. So some people that have problems moving their eyes back and forth, you can narrow the columns so that you don't have to read a lot or move your eyes back and forth a lot. I'll just put it back on the narrow columns. Or there's a page color button here at the top, where you can change the page color, add more contrast, whatever's easier for your eyes to see. You have a button for line focus, so you can see, I'll put it on one line at a time, and you can move through line by line by line. You've got your little arrow keys over here to move up and down line by line. You can make it 3 lines at a time. It's up to you. 5 lines, none. You can adjust the text spacing. Sometimes spacing out the text makes it easier to read, so it'll look like this. Or you can click it off. You can add the syllables, meaning it will split up all your words into their syllables with the little dots in between. Then there's a read aloud feature, which I won't run right now, but if I were to press the read aloud, it would actually read my document to me. I know Joy, I think Joy, you said you use that a lot, the read aloud.
I do all the time.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool feature. And then when you're all finished with Immersive Reader, there is a button that says Close Immersive Reader, and it just puts you back in your document. Okay, so that's one kind of really neat thing. It's really good for accessibility as well. I show that in the accessibility course. And then moving on to Excel. Now, I do get a lot of Excel users in these webinars, lots of Excel users. And whenever I teach an Excel course, whether it's Excel level 1, Excel level 2, Excel level 3, people will say to me, Christine, are you going to teach me pivot tables? Which we do teach in Excel level 3. Pivot tables. Pivot tables are a way of summarizing your information or telling a story about your information when you have rows and rows and rows of data and you have questions about your data. So, for example, we're looking at the data for our Great Canadian Training cover band. This is our tour schedule data. So, we have our show dates and the cities and regions and countries we were in, the venues, the attendance, the ticket sales. Well, I have rows and rows of data, and I'm really interested in things like I wonder what our total ticket sales are per country, or I wonder what the total attendance was per venue, questions like that. And this is what pivot tables will show you. But does everybody know how to create a pivot table? No. Well, this analyze data feature will create pivot tables for you so that you don't have to know how to create pivot tables. Now, it does help if you do have a background in pivot tables because once the pivot table is created, if you know anything about pivot tables, you can edit it. But just to get your pivot table created, it will do it for you. So what you do is you click your cursor in your data somewhere and then up on your home tab, way down the end of your home tab, way down the right side of your home tab is your Analyze Data button. I'm going to click the Analyze Data button, and a task pane is going to show up on the right side of my screen. Now, what it's doing down here, and you can kind of ignore the stuff down here, it's just giving you examples of what you can do. But what you should do is up at the top where it says ask a question about your data, you click in there and like it says, you ask a question about your data and you can form the question in the way that you would actually speak the question. Like you could type, um, I wonder what the average ticket sales are per venue. You could actually type it like this. Now, I would do it like this. I kind of narrow it down, kind of summarize my question. So let's say I wanted the total sum of the ticket sales per country. I would type total sum of ticket sales per country, something like that. Now, when I press enter, here's our answer. And it gives you a sort of a little mini view of a chart. But what I like to do is click this little button that says Insert Pivot Chart. Now you're going to see it cannot insert a pivot chart without having a pivot table there. So I'm going to click Insert Pivot Chart. It's going to start a brand new sheet at the bottom, and it's going to create the pivot table and the pivot chart based on the pivot table. And there's the answer, total sum of ticket sales per country. Now, if you didn't want the chart, you could just click on the chart and press delete. If all you wanted to do was get a pivot table, there you go. And if you know anything about pivot tables and you want to modify it, you could just click in your pivot table and then over on the right side of your screen, start to work with your pivot table. But it was a quick way of getting it in. I'll show you one more. I'll go back to the tour schedule sheet. Let's say I wanted the um, average ticket sales per year. I'll do something a little different. Now you notice I have the show dates here, but I don't have a year column. That's okay. Excel can figure out the year from the dates. So all I have to do, oh, I just deselected my data. I always do that. Hold on one second. I always seem to do that. I always click over there to show you something and I deselect it. Okay. So over here where the question is, I'll type average ticket sales per year. Press enter. I'll choose insert pivot chart. Now it wants to do a line chart because line charts are really good for showing um, uh, things happening over periods of time. You could always change it to something else. But I'll click insert pivot chart. There you go. Pivot table by year, average ticket sale totals. There's your chart. So yeah, give the analyze data button a try. The feature is so cool. Okay, I'll move on to PowerPoint. Again, the feature that I chose in PowerPoint, you don't have to be an expert in PowerPoint. You don't have to know a lot about PowerPoint because this is going to do things for you. So I have our Great Canadian Training cover band, sort of our marketing slides. And I'm here on my slide to where I want to show the Great Canadian Training merchandise that we have. And I have some pictures of some of our merchandise. So I'm going to insert the pictures and then I'll show you the feature. So I'll go up to my Insert tab, Pictures, and they're on my computer, so this device. And I'm going to insert all four of these pictures. Okay, they're all there. Now, I've got to resize the pictures, rearrange the pictures, try to make the slide look good, look like I have some kind of creative ability. And maybe I don't have the time, or I just don't feel very creative. Well, there's a feature in PowerPoint that will be creative for you. It's called Designer. All I have to do is go up to the tab called Design. And again, way down the end of the tab to the right is a button called Designer. And over here on the right, I get a task pane and it comes up with a whole bunch of options for the slide design. So I could click on an option I like I could check this out and go, well, that's cool. That really makes it look like I spent time on it. Or maybe this one. And I could work my way through. If none of those suit my needs, I can go down to the, oh, you use a designer a lot? Isn't it good? It's been around for a few years, but people haven't noticed it. But I could see more design ideas and go through these. And it tries to stick to the theme that you have. So like this theme has the bluish, red, orange themes, and it will give you options with this sort of color coding mostly. Okay, so check designer out. Great feature. When you're finished with it, you can just close it. So there you go, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and the last 365 new skills or new update feature that I'm going to show you is Outlook. So I'll switch over to my Outlook. So now I want to organize a meeting with a bunch of my colleagues. And let's say I know that some of my colleagues aren't the greatest about keeping up their calendars and putting their appointments on. So when I send out meeting requests, then I get responses back that they can't make it, even though it looked like their time was available, or they're suggesting new times, things like that. Rather than do the back and forth, they've added a new feature where you can now poll people for times for meetings. You can suggest a whole bunch of dates and times and have them vote on their best dates and times. So I'm going to show you that feature. I'll go back to the oh, hi Mina. We'll go back to the questions in a few minutes. I'll go back to PowerPoint in a few minutes. But I'll show you this poll feature. So I'm going to start a new email. Whoops, it started over on my other screen here. The poll feature is on the message tab, and it's again way down the end of your message tab. It's called new scheduling poll. If I click it, it's going to tell me right now that I have to add attendees first. So I won't see anything here unless I actually add people. So I'll put some people in my to line. Like I'll invite Jim, I'll invite Joy, I'll invite Susan, that kind of thing. So add people to your to line. And now you'll notice over here on the right that it's asking you, it's already set my time zone. I don't have to change that. It's asking you things like how long is your meeting? What dates and times do you want to suggest? So for the meeting duration, I can choose durations here. I'll just stick with the hour. By the way, the durations, you cannot set a custom duration. You have to choose from the list. So I'll choose an hour. The meeting hours toggle button is just, I don't know if you guys have ever gone into your file options and set what your working hours are. You should, if you haven't done that in Outlook, set your working hours. Like mine are set Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5. Meaning, please don't invite me to meetings after 5 o'clock or on a weekend or 3 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. So if you only want to see suggested times during everybody's meeting hours, keep that on. And then you set the first date here that you're going to suggest. So I'll go in here and I'll say, well, how about next Monday? And then down here at the bottom, it will give me dates or it'll give me times that people are available. So the 4 p.m. time slot looks like all four are available. But then other times, some people are available, some people aren't. You can click the little drop down here and it will tell you who, oh, it's me. I'm not available. I train a lot, guys. So I'm not available, but these three are. So let's say I choose the 4 p.m. time slot for that day, but then I can go up and suggest another day. So maybe the following Monday, the 3rd of March. Oh, look at this. I've got a lot of time slots here. So I'll say, well, how about we meet either at 11 or at 1 or at 2:30. Now, when I click next, I could keep adding dates and times, but when I click next, I'm suggesting Monday, 4 p.m., or that's February 24th, or March 3rd, 9 or 1 or 2:30. If we're actually meeting in person, I could put a location. I'm going to leave it as a Teams meeting. We do a lot of Teams meeting. And sometime when you guys have time, just check out these poll settings. If you don't know what they are, just mouse over them and it will tell you what these mean. But I usually keep these selected. And then I'll click Create Poll. You might want to type a little message in there. Oh, I didn't type a subject. You want to type a subject or a message. Um, I would just type something like maybe this is escape room team building meeting, and then a little message in here and send. And now everybody's going to receive it. They'll open it up. There'll be a poll for them. They can see who's voted for what. They can vote for all the time slots. They can put not available. Yes, this is great for me. This is my preferred time, that kind of thing. So they can fill it all in, send it off. When people vote, you'll get an email every time somebody's completed the vote, you'll get an email. And then when everybody's completed the voting process, um, if there is a time that everybody can meet that they prefer, Outlook will automatically schedule the time. If not, it will tell you that there were conflicts and that people couldn't agree on a time. And then you have a choice. You could force a time in. You could say, well, I don't care, this is the day we're having it. Or it allows you to add any extra dates or times and send it out again, that kind of thing. So there's a whole management system behind it. But oh my gosh, this saves you so much time. Okay, for features, I'm going to hand this back to Joy and then I'll take some questions after she shows you around the website.
Perfect. Just give me 1 second. Perfect. Can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. If you're interested in learning about Microsoft's new features, if you go down to courses, we have something under the Microsoft menu called upskilling. And right now we have Excel upskilling and we have Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook upskilling. And if you notice, it says workshops and not training. So it's a little bit different than training where it's not like 3 hours or 6 hours of training or multiple days sometimes. This is more, we're walking you through the feature, how to apply it in a business setting. You get exercise files with it, you can participate um, through it. And I want to show you also. Every fall we'll have new upskilling just because Microsoft is releasing so much. Like next year, we could easily have Teams probably. To show you, you get a reference guide with it, and the reference guide will explain what the feature is. So this is one of the ones in the current Excel upskilling. It'll tell you what it is, why you would use it, because it's so important to understand the business professional application of the feature, right? There's no point in showing you a feature and then not how do you apply it to your job. And then how do I use it? You'll always be linked to the Microsoft site. Um, that way, if Microsoft continues to enhance the feature or change it, you'll always have access to the latest information. When you take it, there are public classes available, which is great if you're an individual or you have like a couple people in your department that want to take it. But whether you take it publicly or you book a private session, you'll also get a recording or 1 year access to a recording of your session. So, not a session, your specific question. That way, if you ask the instructor any questions, you can always go back and look at it. You can access it through our training portal. And yeah, I was going to say also too, if you're kind of at the point you're saying, I'm not quite at the point of what are all the new features and what's the practical application, I'm still trying to figure out my 365 license. I was going to say, if you go down in the Microsoft menu again to Microsoft 365, we have courses. So, for example, there is the essentials. This breaks down what is in that license, what you would want to use as a busy professional and everything. The next course would be integrating with OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. And then I was going to say one thing, sorry, I forgot to mention with upskilling. It's not going to let me do that. I was going to say the other good thing is I find on the private side, people are booking these as like lunch and learns because if you look, they're not super long, right? They're so action packed. You learn so much. Lunch and learns if they have learning events. Some people are planning to take them like once a year. They pre-plan when they're going to take them, and their department or their company takes it all together. Um, Perfect. Yes. And then I was going to say, just to point out, please look back on our free resources on a regular basis. We're always releasing stuff. Last month we had best SharePoint shortcuts. This month we released best Copilot prompts because that's really the trick to using Copilot is how to prompt it properly. And then if you haven't already, we have 2 more webinars this season. Minute taking in May. This will be our 60th webinar, minute taking. And then in June, if you're a big Excel user, conditional formatting in Excel. And then every fall, we have new webinars. They start up again in September, but we always release the schedule before that. So look back and you can sign up for any of our free webinars. Okay, Christine, I am going to hand it back to you for questions. You're muted if you're talking.
Sorry.
I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
saw the question in the chat that you were asking if it was possible to include a template in PowerPoint Designer. I know what you're going through. So, PowerPoint Designer right now only works with certain sort of templates that come with PowerPoint. So, if you had a template, like if I were using the Great Canadian Training template and I tried to use Designer, I would get that message, sorry, couldn't come up with any design options, which is, I know it's irritating. So the answer is no, some templates it won't work with, but I have good news. kind of, because I've been able to kind of get around that by doing this. So let's say I had the Great Canadian Training template loaded with a bunch of slides, and then there's one slide I wanted to use designer with. What I've done is started a new PowerPoint presentation based on just blank, no specific template. I'll create my slide in that, put whatever pictures, text I want, then load designer and have designer do some really kind of cool design. And then I'll copy that slide and I'll paste it back into my other presentation that's actually using the template. Now, the thing is, if your template has, we have a Great Canadian Training bar at the top in a certain color, I'd have to put that back in. But I have been able to copy and paste and get something that I kind of really like. So maybe that helps. You can try that.
Christine, can I ask you, would you be able to give Susan the links to the four features you showed us, and we'll include them in the follow-up email. So the links to the Microsoft site explaining the features.
Oh, I can do
Include
that.
them. Yeah, and we'll include them in the follow-up email. And there's a handout with it
Sure.
also.
Sure.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I did get a question here. In the polls, what do you mean by require users to authenticate before they vote? How do they authenticate?
Oh, that was so at the end of the poll, remember the four options, the options I said you guys can check out sometime. I leave most of them checked. Most of them are really self-explanatory. That one, require users to authenticate, that's checked. That means that they want users to have an official 365 account and be logged in with their 365 account, which most of you would anyway. If you're using your products, you're probably logged in. But if you were not logged into your 365 account and you were trying to complete the poll, it would ask you to log in. And the biggest reason for that is that then it will tie up a vote to a specific person so you know who voted for what, and it stops people from doing multiple votes, like
Yes.
many times voting for different things, you know what I mean? So that's
Okay, that's
just, they'll
good to
just
know.
ask people to log in. Yeah, that's all it is.
Okay. And then another
You're
poll
welcome.
question. When you're the person voting, can you see how others have already voted?
Yes, yes, it takes you to a main screen that shows all the time slots and where you can choose that you're available or this is actually preferred or no, you're not available. But then it will show the names of who's voted and you can see how everybody's voted. So, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's
And
good
that's
to
part of
know
the
if you're
authentication.
organizing it.
Yeah, yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
And then I have one PowerPoint Designer question. In PowerPoint Designer, does it work for all presentations? So I'm
Oh,
not quite
that's
sure what they meant by that, but
That's the same. I know it was worded differently.
yeah,
That's the same as the first question I got. Because if you're using specific templates, like I said, like Great Canadian Training template, I
branding.
can't
Yeah.
use designer with it, but then I get around it by doing the blank presentation and
Oh,
copying
that's
and
good to know.
pasting. Yeah.
And I will say, as someone who does use the read aloud feature, I do recommend it for either proofreading if you have a
Mm.
big important email. It's also good sometimes because of the way it reads it. If you can't always tell the tone sometimes, because it kind of, in my opinion, kind of removes the tone too. So if you just want to hear how it sounds or you want to proof it, I find the read aloud's good. That's just my
Yeah,
two
you
cents.
do. I know you use that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, someone just asked a question why we use Zoom over Teams for webinars. So you are right. We do use Microsoft Teams for our training. For the webinars, we do Zoom just because it does actually a better recording. It's a higher quality recording because we put these up on YouTube and share them. And if anyone missed the webinar, I want to make sure they get the best possible quality video to watch the webinar
So you can
later.
see every little freckle on my face.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not sure Christine and I love that, but
Yeah.
yeah, so you can see, yeah, you can see everything very clearly. Also, Christine's gonna tell you, people said Dancing Queen and Waterloo were their
Is
favorites,
their
but I think those
favorite.
are their most two popular songs. Those are my two
The
favorites.
the one that everybody dances to the most, guys, well, Dancing Queen, obviously. Super Trooper. The minute we start doing
Yeah,
Super Trooper, everybody's up. Never, always thought it would be Dancing Queen or Waterloo. But yeah, they
there you
love that.
go. There you go. Well, when
Money,
they
money, money.
oh,
Yes,
nice, nice.
I love that.
Now we're getting all the like
The
ABBA
ABBA.
fans and all the songs. Yeah. And I did see someone mention, I suspect they didn't listen to ABBA, so you can look them up on YouTube.
Yes.
You might recognize some of their songs.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, everyone, I'll just wait a second if there's any more questions before we go. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And like we said, within about 2 business days, we'll send you a follow-up email with links to the 4 topics Christine talked about and a handout. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
Stay
guys.
warm.
Thanks, everybody, for to the
Bye,
host, Joy,
everyone.
and our presenter, Christine, for an excellent webinar on 365 in action, new skills, new possibilities.